Hi, so it's now time to do revisions on your short story. And so I want to, before I get started with the actual revisions, I want to remind you what I've already told you. The revisions, are for two reasons. Number one, of course, so you can have the best final draft that you can have, right? You want to make really good revisions. And number two, so that I can see that you know what kinds of changes need to be made and how to make those changes, and that you've learned from all of this process that we're going through. And the only way I can see that is if I can see your changes. So if you have a digital file and you go in and make these changes, but you don't put any numbers and you don't leave the old thing there and show the new thing too, then how do I know that you're actually making a change? I don't. I'm not going to print both of your pages out, your images. I'm not going to go to Johanna's house, and because I don't have a printer, and print all of these out side by side, look at your rough draft and your revisions, and see what I can find. That's just way, way too much to expect of me, right? All I want to do is see that you know what you're doing, not that I know how to find what you're doing. Okay, it's your job, not mine. Anyway, so when I see your revisions, I have to see the old thing, and I have to see where you crossed something out or you added something, and I have to see the number by it to know that you know what you did. Okay, that is what I'm looking for. It should have been clear to you from the very beginning last year, but apparently some of you it's not clear. End of predica. Okay, now we're going to go through these revisions that I would like you to do. I think you can see them. Let's see, you can see all of that. Anyway, it's okay, short story revisions. First of all, put numbers. Again, I'm going to tell you that. Put numbers so I can find your changes. First, this is a coming of age story. Some people's stories that I read, I have some doubts. Okay? That a coming of age story means that your character must face some kind of inner conflict that leads to a decision and actions that show that he or she has matured in some way, a positive change. Some people show a negative change. That's not true. Some people have shown that the character has gone on a quest or something, but I didn't see any change in the character. Okay? So some people have an adult as a character. I don't know how an adult comes of age. I guess it's possible that you have a very immature adult, but in those stories that I read, you didn't have a very immature adult. So if you don't have this, then you have some major changes or you need to start over, because I will not accept your final draft if it is not the kind of story I told you to write. If that didn't happen in your story, change it. If there's some way that you can show it better, add something. Okay, once you're satisfied that it is a coming of age story, just put a 1 with a circle around it somewhere so I can see that you are satisfied, you think that it's a coming of age story. Okay? And I might accept your revisions at that point, but if I don't think it's a coming of age story, then I'm not going to accept your final draft. So think. Number 2, word count. I told you 350 words. I have seen some rough drafts that were about 200 words. That's barely over half of what I asked for. So stories that you read in books have a lot more detail than you think. You know, she touched her cheek, before slowly turning her head and seeing that he was actually standing there right in front of her. Okay, see what I mean? That's the kind of thing that a real story has. So if you don't have 350 words, then you need to add details. What details can you add to make your story 350 words or more. And I should have put a question mark there. I need to do revisions on my revisions directions. Put a 2 next to your number of words. Okay? So if you have 351 words, then put 351 and put a 2 there. If it's that close, then I will actually count every word. If it's not that close, then what I do is I count how many words are in a line. I count just a random sampling of 3 or 4 lines, and I decide, and then I count how many lines there are. So if there are 15 words in a line, and you have 20 lines, then you have 300 words. But if it's really close, then I will actually count every single word. Number 3, dialogue. I said you needed to have dialogue. Remember at the beginning? I said you need to have dialogue. I think I've seen of the rough drafts I've looked at 2 that have dialogue. If you don't, add it. I will post a sample text, an image from a book to show you how paragraphs and dialogue should be shown. Make yours that way and put a 3. So in English, we show dialogue with quotation marks. And we do not use dashes to show dialogue. We use commas, and on the rare occasion, colons, but not usually in stories. So commas with your attributions, and we already went through quotation marks, so you should know how to do this. And each person speaking gets his or her own paragraph. So if I say, no way, and you say, yeah, way, then that's actually a new paragraph. Does that make sense? But if these things don't make sense to you and you can't figure out the example that I'm going to post along with it, please let me know, because sometimes things seem perfectly clear to me, but maybe they're not perfectly clear to everybody. Number 4, make sure you have more than one paragraph. With 350 words, you will need several. Refer to the example. So I will show you a page from a book that's a story, a novel, and you will see how to do dialogue, and you will see how they show paragraphs. And that's what you should do. And a new paragraph comes when you slightly switch what you're saying, or maybe it's a scene change, or maybe it's like 3 horas más tarde, okay? Then you need to make a new paragraph. Let's see. Number 5, make sure you have 0 run-on sentences. If you fix one, put a 5. If you have none, write no RO and put a 5. So when I look at it and I see that you think you have no run-on sentences and you put a 5, but you actually do, then I'm not going to give you that point. See what I mean? Number 6, go through the entire procedure. I mean the story. Sorry. Go through your entire story and correct any grammar, spelling, or punctuation errors you find. Put a 6 next to one correction. Now, if you put a 6 next to a correction, but what you end up with wasn't actually correct, then I'm not going to count that correct. You should probably know that by now, some of you. Anyway, so that's 6 things. This is a 5-point assignment, so if you do all 6 of these things, then you get 6 out of 5. Then when you go to do your final draft, start completely over, redo, because by now your rough draft should be completely messy. So what you want to end up with is a really nice final draft, with all of the mistakes that you can find taken out of it. You do not need to leave the numbers on there. You do not have to double space or skip lines on your final draft. And I'll tell you what, if you come up with a nice creative title for your story, I'll give you at least half a point or maybe a point extra depending on how good your title is. So I think that's it. So happy writing.